Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. Mario Cristobal. The title of the show actually is Mario Cristobal Took the FIU Firing in Stride. So we'll go ahead and let everybody know. And I am pleased to be joined by Candy Ebling, Marvin Powell, and a special guest, and a real special guest. His name is Steve Ballesteri. Steve Ballesteri is a longtime friend of mine, was on Inside the Pigskin on Tuesday night. Obviously, he's been busy at night, but we're just glad that he's able to fill in this morning from Mel Farr, who was unable to make it on short notice. No problem, Mel. Steve Ballesteri will more than happy to come on. And next man up for you today, Mel. So if you're listening, next man up, and an iconic one indeed for sure. All right, well, glad to have you back, Steve. Thanks for being back on the network.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Sorry, I missed Mel. I mean, he's a great guy, but more than willing to fill in for him this morning, and hope I can add something of value here.
Oh, I have no doubt you will. You do. I have no doubt. All right. Well, anyways, let's get to the agenda here. So let's go back. Let's go to the NFL. The most insane thing in sport. Boomer Science says the Bengals are asking their legends to pay their own flights and hotels to attend a Ring of Honor ceremony. Steve, we'll get you started with that one. Paying your own expenses to a Ring of Honor ceremony. Get real, man.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals have a well-deserved reputation as being one of the cheapest organizations in professional sports. And that just proves it. I mean, yeah, you're asking guys to come in for, a Ring of Honor ceremony. So these are the best of the best from your organization, and you're going to make them pay their own way. I mean, that just is what an awful way, to kick off, the ceremony like that. But it doesn't surprise me whatsoever with the Bengals. I mean, that's their MO, and it just, I mean, that, look at it this way. If you're a free agent and, people are saying, hey, you got your pick where you want to go. Do you want to go to Cincinnati and see this is how they treat their people? That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is surreal. Marvin?
Yeah, it really it speaks to culture, and for me it's consistent with all the things that I've heard about that organization. It's Steve just hit it on the head. When NFL free agents are going around and going to different organizations to see who they want to sign with, and you visit and you meet with the coach and the GM and all that stuff. These things come to mind, and you ask yourself, do you want to be a part of an organization that's classless like this? I hate to tell people how they should spend their money, but in situations where you're trying to honor people who've given it all to you on the field, absolutely sacrificed their bodies and everything to go out there to give you a good product in Cincinnati, you want to, call them up to honor them. You take care of that. Everything I've ever heard about organizations in those situations, it's a first-class ticket. It's a 5-star hotel. It's transportation. It's dining at, a nice restaurant the night before. So this is, and then again, everything I've heard about the Bengals, and really starting with my man Carson Palmer, is just that they're just no good, man. You know what I mean? They just don't know how to deal with people. And he didn't tell me that directly. That's just all the sentiment I got from his time in Cincinnati when he was trying to get out of there. So, and not just him. I mean, you've heard other players say it as well. So, yeah, it's consistent to what I think their brand really is. And it's unfortunate that in this people business, this people industry, the leadership of the Bengals organization is doing such classless stuff. So I hate to hear that, man. What a horrible way to set the tone for what should be an amazing weekend.
Candy?
Let me get this straight. So I played years and years for you. I was one of the top leaders for your organization. You now want me to come up there because you're going to put me in a Ring of Honor, whether I show up or not. But you want me there because you want to put more fans in the stands to make more money, but yet you want me to pay all my expenses to do this? What besides, I'm going to be in that Ring of Honor whether I'm there in person or not. So you're going to tell me that I need to pay all my expenses to come up there so you can make more money off me again. Wait a minute. Come on now. There's got to be more give and take. You got to do better than that, Cincinnati. That's awful. That is just awful.
Well, like Steve said, they're notoriously known for being cheap, and that's exactly what they're doing, and the reputation definitely succeeds itself. So, with that said, yeah, it's pretty hard to be motivated to play there, and you have to wonder how much more that Joe Burrow can take of what's going on in Cincinnati, because when you get petty after a while, it ultimately does bite you. It really, truly does bite you. So, with that said, okay, let's go on to something really interesting. Let's talk about the playoffs. The Pac-10 and the Pac-12 QBs in the NFL playoffs, because we're talking about a conference that goes history. They're going to be bringing it back, the new version of it. But you had Seattle, you had Sam Darnold obviously played for USC, Caleb Williams obviously USC, Bo Nix with Oregon. You have, and then of course with the Steelers, you have Aaron Rodgers played for Cal, and Justin Herbert played for Oregon. So, Steve, we'll go back to you. What are your thoughts about the Pac-10, Pac-12 presence in the playoffs?
For all the grief that the Pac, gets in the press about it being a weak conference, the quarterback situation there is what it is, right? And look, you could have Sam Darnold, in the Super Bowl against, now it could be either Drake May or Jarrett Stidham, who come from the Southeast. But, look, it is what it is. And the quarterbacks, I thought all of them, the names you just mentioned, had fantastic years this past season. And it speaks well for the way they develop the quarterbacks out there. So I think that's a great thing for the conference, because if you're a young quarterback in high school, you look at the names that are out there, and they can develop guys that make it to that next level. And I think that is a great recruiting tool.
Marvin?
Yeah, the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 has a long history of really productive quarterbacks, great collegiate quarterbacks who moved on. I know you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you look at a guy like John Elway coming out of Stanford was outstanding. I remember Mark Brunell coming out of Washington. USC's had 3 Heisman-winning quarterbacks here. All of whom have gone to the pros. So yeah, the NFL is always going to be represented, I feel like, with at least one SC quarterback. Right now in the playoffs, where we had Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold, the Bears have lost. So now we're all Trojan fans are really riding hard with Sam Darnold to represent the USC Trojans in the Super Bowl here. But yeah, the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8 always will give you quarterbacks and always give you receivers. And, this year is no different. Just watching Sam Darnold just go through his season in Seattle, which was a successful season. And again, just doing it at a high level as a USC grad, as a Pac-12 alumni.
Yeah, I thought Caleb was going to pull it out again last weekend. I mean, that incredible, the end of regulation touchdown. And then I was thinking to myself, man, this team, they had the unfortunate, interception in overtime. But boy, they were the cardiac kids all season, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But you can only play like that and live on that for so long. Yeah. That's the unfortunate reality. And that interception at the end between him and DJ Moore, who knows what was going on. I think DJ was supposed to flatten out. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we almost had an NFC championship with two Pac-12 quarterbacks.
Candy?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you have certain schools that develop certain position players. And it can be said of a lot of different schools. And I think that's the reason why when you see there's a long history of them is because people realize that, and they recognize that, hey, this school is really good at developing quarterbacks, and so then the recruits are good quarterbacks, and then the list goes on and on. So yeah, for the Pac-12, it's awesome that they get good quarterbacks, because let's face it, that's the one position you really need to get right.
Well, the Pac-12 has a great history of producing quarterbacks anyways. The list goes on and on. If you start looking at Super Bowl quarterbacks in the Pac-12, I'll even take you back to a guy, Steve ought to know his name all too well, a guy by the name of Jim Plunkett out of Stanford. Now, albeit he didn't make it with New England, forget that, okay? He ends up getting another chance with the Raiders, and he wins a couple Super Bowls. And the list goes on. I mean, I can't think of how many Super Bowl quarterbacks have come out of there that have ended up winning. Well, here's another one. What about Troy Aikman? If there's ever a time for Mel Farr to miss a show, too bad, Mel. We're complimenting UCLA, pal, because Troy Aikman is in there, and he won out of UCLA. So that conference is known to produce an awful lot of quarterbacks. And this list that I went out there and mentioned just goes to show you how deep that conference is. It's a shame it went down, but the history is what it is going to be. And when Washington State and Oregon State decided to save it, they weren't stupid. They saved a conference with a great deal of history because they maintained the history itself. Now, they're never going to get an automatic bid like they would have been if they were a Power 5 school, but it doesn't matter. When we talk about the future revampment of that conference down the road, it'll still be respectable enough to have good quality competition. But think about it. Jim Plunkett and then Troy Aikman, not too bad for sure. All right, well, let's go to college football. The reality is of the Miami. I'm sorry, go ahead, Stephen. You want to add to it?
Yeah, I was going to say, you brought
You
back memory. When I was a youngster, Jim Plunkett was the first NFL jersey I ever owned. When he played for New England.
No kidding, really? Jim Plunkett?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I'll tell you what,
I
thought he was going to do pretty well.
Right? Yeah, I'm dating myself there. But yeah, he was so beat up after his years with the Patriots that Al Davis basically sat him for an entire season so he could get healthy. And then he led the Raiders to a couple of Super Bowls. So, yeah, I was happy for him at the time. Sorry to see him leave New England, but it just worked out that way. They were terrible.
No, but you're right. I mean, you're right. He was battered so bad that at least Al Davis did go ahead and give him a year off just to kind of recover. That's a great point. I didn't know he owned his jersey, but he played pretty well for the Stanford Cardinals at the time. Yeah. How about, well, that shows you the experience that Marvin all of a sudden has been surrounded with on this show that he didn't expect waking up to. He was looking for a boxing match, and instead he's getting a clinic of two old vets. But that's right, Marvin seems to handle all these adjustments. Anything you want to add to that, Marvin?
No, I mean, as I think about it, I mean, you think about a guy like Drew Bledsoe, and even, again, at UCLA, they had Bono out there, and I mean, just so many quarterbacks that have come from the West Coast. That really speaks to, and a lot of these kids, came from California and went on to other schools in the Pac-12. But again, it just speaks to the high level of quarterback play that we've seen from the Pac just over the last 40 years. They put guys in the NFL. Pac-12 guys, Pac-10 guys, Pac-8 guys have been the leader of quite a few NFL organizations. So hate to see that conference break up. Happy to see it try to build back up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go back to the reality is that the Miami Hurricanes haven't won a national championship since 2001. It's the longest since its first championship in the early 80s. Some thoughts about the Canes? Well, tell you what, they're going to have to wait a little bit longer. It's not going to get any easier. Steve.
What a great football game that was, though. I mean, you talk about, for a national championship game, that's what you want. It came right down to the wire. I mean, that final touchdown by Indiana, I mean, what a play call on 4th and 5. I was thinking to myself at the time, boy, they're playing with fire here because, you're down in the red zone where everything's kind of shortened. I was thinking to myself, maybe I would take, the field goal here, but they had confidence in Mendoza. What a great play by that kid. And then Miami goes down at the end of the game, and it looks like they're going to, take the national championship. And they came up just a little bit short. Beck's pass, again, I don't know if there was a disconnect with his wide receiver, but it seemed pretty far off the mark there. And it was unfortunate for them. But what a great championship game. I was actually glad for Indiana because they've never won anything. They have a history of being really bad football teams. And to see them go undefeated this year and win their first, I was kind of happy for them.
Marvin?
When you say that hasn't won a championship since 2001, you got to kind of pump the brakes a little bit, because really what you're talking to are their standards, okay? And this is a program who has been at the height of college football. I mean, they came onto the college football scene late, if you ask me, considering that other schools have been playing football since the 1800s. I think with Schellenberger and then Jimmy Johnson, they took that program to the top fast, okay? And you got programs out there who've never won a championship, and if they won a championship in 2001, that would be the height of their athletic achievement, and they'd still be talking about it. At where they get elite level athletes, they have a lot of money going into that program. They've put out some of the best players in the history of the game. They have standards. So yeah, when you say they haven't won a championship since 2001, that's we're talking about over 20 years. But again, let's keep in mind, you got programs who have never won a championship, or at least haven't won one in the modern era. So is definitely, I would say that they are back in terms of just really playing for championships, getting elite players, having a head coach who understands that culture, as he's an alum as well. And I would expect to see them continue on, with their success that they've had with Cristobal, and just competing, hopefully, for their first ACC title at some point coming here. But then again, getting into playoffs and making runs. So yeah, it's been a minute, man, but they have a lot of success in that program, and I think they have a lot more when you look at the leadership they have right now.
Candy.
A lot more.
So let's look a little bit at their history, Marvin. Their first season was back in 1926. So they've actually been playing football for 100 years. But their claimed national championships were 83, 87, 89, 91, and then 2001. They had conference championships. They've won. Remember, they were back in the Big East before. So they won the conference championship in 91, 92, 94, 95, 96, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. So they had some real good teams, and they were real streaky back in the time. Now in the ACC, the conference division championships was 2017. They took that championship. But yeah, they have not been back on the national stage for a while. They went through a drought, through some different coaches. And yes, now it's kind of funny because we're all talking about them like they're back and how well did they play in this game. And yet there were a lot of people saying that they didn't even belong in the championship, in the playoffs. But yet, look what they did. They made it to the national championship. They took it down to the wire. They had a chance to win it at the end, and yet people thought they didn't deserve to be in there, that other teams should have been in there.
They proved all those naysayers wrong.
That's correct.
Well, Candy, you just set yourself up for the soundbite that you're about to go ahead and put on right now. I asked Cristobal about the fact that they are the number 10 seed, and Candy's going to put it up right now. Thank you, Candy. Great segue, Steve. This is what we're bolstering here. Go ahead, Candy. Put it up there, please. Thank you.
Give me a second here. I got to cue it up. Let me make sure I'm right there. Okay, here we go. Share screen.
Only concern. He's not caught up in personal.
Hold on. We're gonna have the
Let's go undefeated and tied
we have
to
the,
win a national championship. What are your thoughts about Bob Knight? And you had to begin with, and what you have a chance to do, obviously. Row one, Candy.
it's right after it.
Yeah, it was 50 years ago, as a matter of fact. And I was a big kind of Bob Knight fan as a little kid. I liked sort of the shenanigans and the press conferences and throwing the chair across the court. I thought that was pretty cool. And the guy I bought my house from was a good friend of Bob Knight, actually. So, I think, but it really has no effect on what's going to take place here, 7:50 tomorrow night. And but it was 50 years ago, and if we're able to climb that mountain, it'll be a unique coincidence.
And Mario, you obviously entered the tournament as a number 10 seed. How much did that drive you throughout there to prove a lot of people wrong, that you certainly believe that you deserve to be where you're going to be at tomorrow night to finish the job? Because a lot of times people use that as a way to motivate themselves to get to the tournament. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I don't think the external stuff has ever been a motivator for our team. I think it's always been internal. I think our guys always want to prove themselves right. And I think the confidence and the trust in each other was something that just continued to build momentum throughout the course of the season. And it was a matter of just finally just looking at each other, looking in the mirror, and making a commitment to work out the details to allow us to win in the margins, right? Because college football nowadays, the margins are so small. And if you don't own those details, you're going to get the game. So I think it was that. I think it was all internally driven, and proud of them for that. But I think that there's an appetite, there's an acknowledgement that there's a lot more improvement to be had and to be made. And I think that we've worked really hard over the course of the playoffs to continually get better.
So there you have it, Steve. That's Mario Cristobal in a nutshell. What are your thoughts about?
Yeah, and again, look, there was a lot of people that thought Miami shouldn't have got into the playoff, but once the playoffs started, I think they quieted all that. I mean, look at the run they had, and again, like Candy just said, I mean, you're coming down to the final minute of the national championship game, and you're driving for a game-winning score. I mean, that's it. To say they didn't belong, I think it was a mistake on some people that they'd like to have that, that one back a little bit.
Marvin?
Yeah, I thought he gave a very good coach answer. I mean, basically what he's saying is, no excuses. We're here. And, the opportunities in front of us. And listen, they went out there and, they had some penalties. They had some special teams issues, but I thought they played hard. I thought they battled back. I thought they did a phenomenal job of getting pressure on Mendoza. That takes juice and energy. That pass rush is an effort thing, So I thought he did a great job of really just showing us exactly what he was talking about in that press conference. Got to block this stuff out and go out there and get after it. The thing about it that's strange is this team went to the national title game, but under the new playoff format that was announced yesterday, they wouldn't have made it. They would have been left out just based on the new criteria moving forward. But listen, you got these are kids, man. These are young kids. They're emotional. They play with emotion, which can be a good thing. And they were definitely able to overcome any issue and any drama or anything that had to be said about them not belonging there. I think they proved all those people wrong with that national championship run, at least heading to the championship game. So yeah, they played really good football in these playoffs, and they look good. They beat some good teams, and I think they proved a lot of doubters wrong.
Candy?
Yeah, Miami was a team that kicked themselves in their own foot, and they did it in the national championship game. They did it in the games that they had lost earlier. They made mistakes, and they were costly mistakes. When you give up penalties and free yards, you know, when the other team is driving, when the punt that you tried to kick off and you know the other team recovered it in the end zone for a touchdown. Those all matter, but those are all mistakes that Miami made. Did Miami belong in that championship game? Obviously, yes, because they found ways to win all the games that they needed to get there. You know, whatever anybody says, they shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. You know what? They were the hot team then, and they carried and they showed it to you that they can beat the other teams. Were they the Indiana that blew out the other teams? No. But all that matters is the W. And they won it all the way up until the end. Don't mistake anything I said. Congratulations to Indiana, because that was an unbelievable season. But Miami absolutely deserved to be there. They played their way in to that game.
Well, when they ended up getting in the tournament and they played Texas A&M, I believed all along they were going to be Texas A&M. I really did, and momentum picked up into beating Ohio State, and the list goes on and on over to Ole Miss. Okay, we're going to get this one here strictly for Marvin. Okay, Nebraska special teams coach Mike Eckler has been hired by USC after one season. Your thoughts about the hire, Marvin?
It's a great hire for USC. Nebraska special teams was trash 2 years ago. And just last year, with Mike Eckler being the head special teams guy, they jumped up to like the top 25 in special teams, even higher than that, to be honest with you. Very efficient play, consistent play. I think they had 5 blocks all season long, which is phenomenal when you think about it. And, they didn't have not one kick blocked. USC special teams, we didn't have a coach. We had a bunch of assistant coach, position coaches who were chipping in, and I think we had an analyst or a GA or somebody who was helping us lead that in some capacity. So yeah, it's a great move by Lincoln Riley to show some kind of commitment to special teams. Football is a game of inches. Special teams matter. We had 2 horrific losses that where special teams have played a major role in Oregon and in Notre Dame. So again, to watch us this year be in so many games, to be this close to so many games, for special teams to be the difference in some of those games, this is a great hire. Eckler's a guy who's already been to USC. He coached at USC about 10, 12 years ago. A lot of the players at SC who played under him have come out and said what a great coach he was. One of the things I think he brings, other than a proven track record of special teams and linebacker, he's a fiery guy. We had Rob Ryan, Rex's brother. For those who aren't familiar, we had Rob Ryan as our linebacker coach this year. Great guy, very knowledgeable, but in my opinion, he was too California cool, really laid back. Eckler's old school. He's a mofo. He's a SOB. He's a guy that's going to challenge you and bring fire. And that's what we need. I mean, that's what we need at SC. That's what we need on that side of the ball. Lincoln Riley's taking care of the offense. We're not worried about that. His offense has been fine since the day he got there, and that's the truth. The issue has been defense and special teams. So Eckler, who will serve as linebacker coach and special teams coach, it was a great hire. We're very excited about it. And another sign that it was a great hire is if you look at any of the Nebraska chat rooms and their podcasts, their fans are furious. Their fans are furious. Their alumni are furious. This was a huge loss for them, as he was looked at as the best assistant on their staff. So this is Lincoln Riley upgrading that side of the football and just really helping us on defense and special teams, areas where we need help. Great hire for USC. Great move, Lincoln Riley.
Anybody have anything else they want to add to it?
I think that was perfectly said there.
There you go, Marvin. That's his deal. All right, let's go back to the NFL. The Seahawks haven't allowed a passing touchdown since overtime versus the Rams on December 18th, 2025. Well, Steve, what are your thoughts about the fact that will they allow one this meeting?
Yeah, they're going to allow one this meeting. Now, whether it's one or more, that remains to be seen. That Seahawks defense is legit. I mean, they're stacked on all 3 levels, right? The defensive line, the linebackers, the secondary, they all play extremely well together. I mean, but the Rams passing game is really, really good. I mean, Puka Nacua, I mean, he is who he is. Matthew Stafford, obviously, is the front runner for the MVP this year. So, those guys, you can quiet them down, which actually the Rams passing game hasn't been its normal self in the playoffs. Now, they pulled out a late game win against the Carolina Panthers. They won in overtime last week, but they haven't been lighting it up like they have been. And the Seahawks defense is really, really good. But to say they would shut out the Rams this week, even on the road, I don't see that happening.
Marvin.
Yeah, you listen. The Seahawks defense is for real. I think that their offense can obviously make plays as well in the run game and the pass game. But I wouldn't, if I was Matt Stafford and Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, that would mean nothing to me. What I saw Matt Stafford do in that Chicago game last week was elevate his game. I saw him elevate his game. I saw him put together just amazing throws when amazing throws were needed. I saw the future Hall of Famer receiver Adams get out there, make a phenomenal catch. This is a veteran team in many areas, and they know how to step up. They know how to turn it on. They have enough gas in the tank. Stafford, Adams, Puka, these guys are finding ways to get it done. They've been consistent throughout the year when they're together. And I would never, ever count out Matt Stafford in any situation. I don't care if he goes into the first 3 quarters with 5 interceptions. Matt Stafford knows how to turn this thing up. You know what I mean? And he has it in him. He has every reason to want to go out there and win these games as he's headed toward the end of his career, toward the end of his MVP season and Hall of Fame career. So Seattle, defense is something that is real. I think they have a great defensive-minded head coach in Seattle, but this is going to be Clash of the Titans, man. And while I expect the Seattle defense to come up and make some plays, I also expect Matt Stafford to show you, that he's Matt Stafford.
Candy?
If you look at the Rams offense per game, they're first in the NFL in passing yards, and they're first in points. Now, if you compare that to Seattle's defense, Seattle's defense is 10th in the league for passing yards, but they're first in the league for points. So one of those two is got to give in this game. If I think this game will come down to passing, I don't think it's going to be one in the running back spot in this game at least. I think it's going to be very interesting. Matthew Stafford has been there, done that, so he's a veteran and he knows he's been in this situation before. He knows what to do. He knows how to get his guys ready. But his offensive line also has to protect him because his health, he's obviously not young, but he's also had some back issues. So that could play a factor into the game as well. Hopefully not, because you hate to see that. But so I think it's more about their offensive line and how they protect Stafford in this game.
Let me tell you, when Stafford emerges with a win in Soldier Field under some really cold conditions, I was impressed. That, to me, you talk about one of the biggest games of the year. In that kind of weather, if you've ever been in Soldier Field when it's cold, and I'm sure you probably have, Steve. I know Marvin's probably played in it, and I've covered in it. It's just unbelievable. Sean McVay, I'm glad that he got another year out of him. Underneath, I wouldn't put nothing past the Rams for sure. So, with that said, let's talk about quarterbacks from non.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you go back to the beginning of the season, there was a lot of questions of whether or not he'd be even able to play this year. I mean, because of the back issues he was having. I mean, you remember, like back in training camp, there was a lot of question marks. And, nobody was sure how much he'd be able to play, if at all. And then, for him to turn in the season that he's had has been an incredible story this year. And, he just lights it up every week, and he has the receivers to do it. And they they have really talented guys. But again, like Marvin was saying earlier, some of those passes in the game against Chicago and elsewhere, just incredible throws where, if you're an opposing player, sometimes you can have the best coverage in the world and you're just going to have to tip your cap to the guy on the other side because there was no defending a couple of those.
Well, they brought in your old buddy Jimmy Garoppolo there as a backup in case he could make it through the year. So Jimmy obviously gets a hold of clipboard and may have a chance to win another Super Bowl. So there's the old Patriots way. Jimmy Garoppolo may be there to collect another ring.
Yeah.
It's just because he's holding the clipboard. Great story all the way around. Thanks for adding that, Steve. Much appreciated. So let's talk about from the non-Pac-12 schools. Have quarterbacks in there. We got Matthew Stafford, Georgia, Brock Purdy of Iowa State, Drake May, University of North Carolina, Josh Allen, Wyoming, and C.J. Stroud, Ohio State. All right, Steve, which one impresses you the most of all that ended up making the tournament?
Well, to me, Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the league. I've been a big Josh Allen fan for a long time. And I thought this was going to be the year that he won the Super Bowl. Honestly, I was picking the Bills all season to get hot at the right time. And he just came up a little short last week in Denver. The turnovers killed him in that game because I thought that, against that Denver defense, which is very legit as well, I just thought that the Bills were doing a great job running the ball. Of course, Josh Allen does Josh Allen things, but they came up short because of the turnovers. But I just I've been a Josh Allen fan for a while, and of course, I really like the kid for the Patriots. In his second season, he's come on this year with Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator. What a difference that's made for him from year one to year two.
Yeah, Drake May's in quite a story for sure. And of course, what can you say? Josh Allen, I think a lot of us were hoping that he had a chance to win it all. It didn't work out. And we don't have to go on what proceeded to happen there. We'll save that for future shows. Marvin.
Yeah, I go back and forth between Purdy and Josh Allen, and I probably have to say Josh Allen. Listen, Josh is a phenomenal player coming off an MVP season. He's put up numbers. He's a player who's won me over. When he got drafted, I thought he was going to be a bust. His issue was accuracy, and he's improved, man. He's gotten to the NFL and he's gotten better. The problem he's going to have is that they've paid him. They've paid him. They fired his coach now, and at some point you're starting to already hear people question Josh Allen and say, "Hey, buddy, it's your time to do something." You went into a playoffs this year with no Joe Burrow, no Mahomes, and no Jackson. And granted, your team won a playoff game on the road, and that's significant, considering the history of the organization. But what's happened recently, but no, this guy is going to have to get over the hump and get over the hump quickly. Because if not, he'll be looked at as the guy who just couldn't get it done. And in this era of football, where these guys are getting paid what they're getting paid, you want Super Bowls to go to be on your resume. Okay, you want to, and this was the year to do it. It is not all on him, no doubt about it. Josh is a phenomenal player. He's been clutch. I mean, I feel like many times his team has won, and they've won games in spite of his team, and he's been the guy that had to really put the Superman cape on. But no, he has to find a way to get it done because, again, you're already starting to hear the whispers of, can he get over the hump? And those whispers become very loud over time, and they never stop. And they never stop until you get over that hump. So, yeah, I think he is the best of that non-Pac-12 bunch that you just mentioned. I think he is a very good player, but he's going to need championships to justify everything else in the end. He will. He'll need championships. And this was an opportunity that they lost out on this year.
Andy?
I hate to be the same as everybody else, but I'm going to go with Josh Allen. And here's what I'm going to say. Coaching matters. And I'm not going to say that he had a bad coach. But look at the difference, the different year that Trevor Lawrence has had. Look at the different year that Caleb Williams has had, all with new coaches. So I think it matters who's coaching him. And, I think the rest of the team you saw there were times when it was Josh Allen doing everything he could, putting the team on his back and carrying the team, carrying the load, getting it done. I think Josh Allen has done that. I think sometimes maybe to a fault he does that. That he needs sometimes maybe to rely more on his other teammates. That matters too. But yeah, I agree. We all say that championships matter. You know, there's no one that's going to say that Aaron Rodgers isn't a great quarterback. But one of the biggest downfalls that everybody is saying is he only has one Super Bowl ring. You know, so yes, Josh Allen has to get to the game and win it. And he had a good window this year. I don't know how good of a window it'll be next year, but the thing is, if you want to be a champion, you got to beat everybody else. So you got to beat those other champions, of those other MVP quarterbacks as well. But I think he's the best out of the ones you mentioned, Scott.
Well, I think the best story, and I repeat, Steve knows a lot about stories, right? Out of this group is Brock Purdy, because once upon a time, this guy's Mr. Irrelevant. And here's a guy that beats Trey Lance for the job. And he's still performing at a decent level, no matter how many different players get knocked out of there. And John Lynch has gone on record saying Brandon Ayuk's not going to be a part of this team next year, no matter what. And Brock Purdy continues to find a way to perform. Tebow Samuel got shipped to Washington. So I think Brock Purdy is a great story, S-T-O-R-Y, okay, of this group. Yeah, we know that a lot of us thought that Josh Allen had a great window, but watch out for Brock Purdy. This guy is an underdog, and in America, everybody likes to pull for an underdog. So just thought I'd throw that out there and be the different one of the group. But we're not leaving Josh Allen, because all he did was he actually played 3 years at the University of Wyoming, so the altitude didn't have anything it didn't really seem to phase him one bit. 7,165 feet of elevation. Laramie's population was 27,204. All right, Marvin, let's go ahead and talk about the altitude.
Let me tell you something. That altitude is a real thing. In 2000, I was traded to the Packers. We had a preseason game in Denver, and I played 3 consecutive plays in that game. And for the first time in my career, after those 3 plays, thank God it was first down, second down, third down. We didn't convert. We came back to the sideline so the punt team can go out there. I ran to that sideline. I had oxygen on my face. I mean, it was tough. It was real tough. I remember going out to Colorado on a recruiting trip and just feeling and getting off the plane and feeling like this isn't going to work. This ain't going to be able to happen. There's no way in the world I can come to school out here. I can't even breathe. Altitude is real. The fact that you don't hear about it, that the commentators, and the play-by-play guys don't talk about it and give the fans and the watchers, the viewers that understanding is wild to me, because it's not like playing anywhere else. You absolutely feel it. I don't care if you're in shape. You feel it. It's a real thing. The pros, these guys are in phenomenal shape, and you watch a basketball game or you watch, a football game, and it's as if they're playing, at normal sea level, and they're not. For those who are watching this, it is a huge advantage to the home team when you have to go to Denver to play them. Josh Allen played in Wyoming. That absolutely conditions him, gets his body ready for that. That's a real thing. That's a very real thing. So the transition for him to have to go play in Mile High, it isn't that bad, man. So, but for those who aren't accustomed to it, for those who haven't trained in it, for those who don't get to play and practice in it on a daily basis, it is a huge disadvantage. And, obviously there were other things in play, I think, in Mile High. I think the refs may have did him in a little bit on a couple of those calls. But, yeah, I'm not worried about Josh Allen playing in high altitudes. He's been conditioned for it. He's used to it. He knows exactly what it is.
So, yeah, Steve, here's what we've got now. Obviously, there was no problem with Josh Allen playing at Mile High. All he did was play at Wyoming with the Cowboys. 7,165 feet of elevation in Laramie. Population of that place, by the way, is 27,204. I don't know what some of the populations are in Florida, but that was a seamless transition, unfortunately, for obviously the Bills with the loss. What are your thoughts about the seamless transition, Steve, about Josh Allen in Denver / Wyoming?
Yeah, and I apologize. We're having some internet issues here on the West Coast.
Oh, that's okay.
But
Don't worry about it.
you know, I caught the last bit of that, and look, playing at Wyoming, Josh Allen, it didn't affect him. I mean, statistically he had a big game. It was the turnovers that hurt him, and and to Margaret's point earlier, the altitude in Denver is not it's not a joke. I mean, I never played football at that altitude, but I played for the USA ball team at 15,000 feet in a soccer stadium in Bolivia, and I'm here to tell you, we had to play softball at that level because the ball traveled so far. And that thin air will get to you. I mean, you just track down a fly ball. It was daunting, at 15,000 feet, which is almost 3 Denvers. So that thin air will definitely take a toll on players, especially in the second half of games, right? Because you might be able to slog through that first half, but then as the game wears on, you're not getting that oxygen in, and it is difficult. And Allen, I thought, handled it extremely well. It just, it was unfortunate they turned the ball over, and they did suffer from a couple of calls I thought could have went the other way, but it is what it is. That's the NFL, and we could spend a week of shows on here talking about bad calls, but they seem to even out at the end of the day. And Allen would be a quarterback if the situation changed for him in Buffalo. He would thrive in Denver.
I can only imagine. Yeah, I mean, he played Wyoming, that's for sure. So, what's a couple thousand feet? I agree.
And to Candy's point, coaching does matter. Marvin mentioned earlier, he was so inaccurate when he came out of college. The critics were saying he can't hit water out of a boat. Then he got, hooked up with Brian Daboll, and that's when his whole game changed. And he became such a great quarterback. And, you look at these Sean Payton with Drew Brees. I mean, the coaching matters. And again, we're talking about my guy in New England, right? Drake May. They brought back Josh McDaniels, terrible head coach, outstanding offensive coordinator. And the difference between May as a rookie last year and this year is night and day. I mean, he has complete control of that offense. Their offensive line still needs some work, but you look at the way he runs that offense and the way he sees the field, and it all comes down to coaching.
Candy?
So I'm going to go back to the altitude matters. And no, I have not played any games in Colorado, but my sister went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I helped move her in. And she lived on the second floor, and you had to do stairs. So you tell me how hard and how heavy I was breathing doing those stairs, moving in. And moving is grueling no matter where you're moving into. But then to have to take stairs and then to do it in that altitude when you're not used to that at all. Football players have the ability, and if teams are smart enough, they take them out to Denver ahead of time so they can get a little bit more used to it. You still aren't going to be completely used to it. You don't, unless you play in there all the time. But if they go out there a little bit earlier, and I don't know that all the teams do. Did it matter for Josh Allen? No. But the other thing is he's not the only person on that football field. There's other offensive players that maybe were affected some of those plays, those turnovers. Was it the offensive line? Maybe they were winded and they couldn't block and protect for him as much. Maybe the receivers weren't getting as open as they're used to, or they're used to one of the things that they used to say is that some of the quarterbacks throw where the player is supposed to be, where they expect the player to be. Well, if you're in Mile High and you're not running as quickly because of the altitude, they might not be in the same spot that they're normally in, but yet the defensive player maybe is, and that might be why you have more interceptions. So we talk about it just affecting Josh Allen, but it affects the whole team as well. So it was unfortunate that they, had the showing that they did, but they'll be okay. They'll be okay, barring that they hire the right coach. That actually very much matters. And yes, Steve, I totally agree. Bringing bringing McDaniels back in to coach Drake May was lights out difference. And some coaches are really good at OC at coordinator positions, but not that good at head coaches. And kudos for him to go back and go back to that role and help Drake May.
Well, what's up, Anthony Lewis? He'll be on, by the way. Baseball, just to let everybody know, programming note, Talking Baseball is going to be on this morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So we have a doubleheader this morning. Steve, won't we have you on today? Give me your thoughts about the job that Mike Vrabel has done up in New England. You're much closer to the situation. We can talk about a no-brainer hire over Gerard Mayo. This one definitely was it.
Yes, and I think, look, Gerard Mayo was a guy. He was a great player in New England. He was a really good coach. I just think that they kind of jumped the gun on him. I think they hired him a little too soon as a head coach, and he didn't have he didn't have the name recognition that and the connections that other guys had. So when he tried to fill out his staff, they couldn't get anybody to sign on with them. And that was a big difference for them because, he had first-time coordinators everywhere, and he's a first-time head coach. It created a perfect storm against him. I thought at the time they should have gone after Mike Vrabel, right? But that was the fan part of me because I remember Vrabel as a player, and then I thought he did a great job in Tennessee. But when they brought him in last year, it was just about a year ago when they brought him in. What a job he did. And I remember the first day he talked about, look, there's a lot of history here, but now you have to create your own path. And that's why he got rid of a lot of the established veterans. And, he wanted to wipe the slate clean and start from fresh. And in his first day, he said, we want to compete for the division title. We want to play meaningful playoff games and have an opportunity, to go deep into the postseason. Well, nobody thought they were going to be able to do that in year one. And, he's just been, he's been building this team, and we've seen it start from the spring workouts through, training camp. And even after training camp, people were thinking, hey, they might compete for a wild card, berth this year. They might actually win 8 or 9 games, which, after 2 years in a row of winning just 4 games each, winning 8 or 9 games would have been a huge turnaround for them. And the fact that they won 14, is a testament to the staff he put up. But also, they were so good at hitting on all their free agents and draft picks. Their draft picks, 11 of them are still on the roster. And, they're doing such a great job with incorporating these guys into the game plan every week. It's rare to see a team that rookies play so many snaps be that successful. But that I think goes hand in hand with the coaching that he's been able to bring in. Look, they lost their defensive coordinator, in the summer, Terrell Williams, he came down with prostate cancer. Zach Kerr, he was kind of an unknown guy. He was the inside linebackers coach, and he kind of took over. He's been doing a great job. And, Vrabel tying all that together, and I mean, they're so far ahead of their rebuild. I mean, because Vrabel, didn't make any moves at the trade deadline because he's like, we don't want to give up our assets. We're still in the early stages of a rebuild, and now they're in the conference championship game with the shot to go to the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Scary thought. Anthony Lewis mentions in the chat room, Vrabel probably made it impossible for Mayo to be a head coach again. Well, he didn't help matters any, that's for sure, did he, Steve?
No.
Kid's going to have to wait a while.
Yeah, Vrabel's just. I think he's an outstanding head coach. He builds the relationship with the players, and he demands a lot out of them. But they like to play for him. He's a straight up guy, and I just think he's hitting on all the right buttons this year.
Steve, to your point, I want to say I've seen that after the games that Vrabel, before the guys are headed into the locker room, he's greeting and acknowledging each one and every one of them. And I really like that. I think that is really building the culture there.
Yes, and that's something he's done since the first game of the year. Well, they didn't win that one, but yeah, it's hard to believe they lost to the Raiders in week 1, but you see where they've come since then. Since the week 3 loss to Pittsburgh, where they turned the ball over 5 times in that game. They've won 15 of their last 16 games. So they've really turned it around. But yeah, that's just one of the things he does. He greets the players. He lets them know he appreciates them. And the first thing he says after they win every week, that he's proud to be their head coach. And I think that resonates with the young guys and the veterans because, he's, as you all know, he's very sarcastic with his comments. And the guys talk about that in the film room where he'll let them know when they make a mistake and it'll be very sarcastic. But at the same time, he knows how to build up guys. He knows which buttons to push. And that's a tough one for a coach. Marvin, you played, in the NFL. You know how, some coaches are disciplinarians. Some guys are more what they call player coaches. But finding all the right buttons to push is not an easy task.
Well, the reality is there's a certain thing about second-time head coaches where they learn a lot from their first situation. Bill Belichick, obviously, they of course didn't hurry at Tom Brady either, but nevertheless, second-time head coaches learn what they did wrong the first time. They readjust, and now you have the same situation with Vrabel. All right, Marvin, you having a good time here, my man? You're learning a lot from Steven and I?
Man, listen, I have nothing but gratitude. Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Nothing but gratitude, man, listening to Steve do his thing. I love to sit back and watch the pros, no doubt about it. And this is exactly that. So as a young guy who's or at least young in this industry, looking to break into this thing full time, I'm thankful, Scott, that you got a guy like Steve on here. So it's cool to sit back and listen to him do his thing, see him work his magic.
See, yeah. I'll tell you, we're put out of clicks. Steven and I always made good music together. Here we are doing it again. All right, let's continue.
Well, it's funny because when you mentioned this morning when you called me up, and you said, "Hey, can you come on? We got Marvin Powell on," and I was like, I remember that name because I'm dating myself. I remember your dad when he was the right tackle for the Jets, multiple, Pro Bowler. I mean, and I was like, wow, this is exciting for me because, the Patriots and Jets growing up, that was the big rivalry, They still are. I mean, even though the Jets have been down for quite a few years, but I remember those games. I mean, when your dad played and those were always, must-watch TV. So this was a treat for me.
It's appreciated.
Oh, I got this for you. We're going to build a powerhouse here on Saturday, Steve. How'd you like to be part of the treat on Saturdays and join this group? And we can beat up on Mel because Marvin gets a kick out of beating up on him. And now we got you, and now Mel's going to be looking down on the shoulder. The one time I took the day off, Motor Mouth here dug into a bag of tricks and brought on Steve. No, let me tell you, this
and then again,
I know it.
I joined the military. I was a Green Beret at Fort Bragg. Where I lived, it was
I think Steve's having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll get him. He'll get it in there. He'll slip it all in as we continue. I mean, Steve Ballesteri is a legend on our network. They had him, Coach Bono, Mel, Bo. I mean, geez, so peace. There's Steve. All right, go ahead.
I tell you what, Steve. I heard you say Fort Bragg. My dad grew up at Fort Bragg. He was a military brat, and my mom and my parents were high school sweethearts growing up at and around Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina, off of I-95. For those who are not familiar, and I ended up coaching high school football in Fayetteville at 71st High School. For those who know,
that's what I was mentioning when my thing cut out. I lived right near 71st, and I used to go to their high school games when I was, at home, because I love high school football. And yeah, that's where your dad played, 71st. So, big circle.
Yeah,
I've been to Fort. Yeah, I've been to Fort Bragg. It's a pretty interesting town, definitely a military town for sure. Well, let's go back to the Miami Hurricanes. We talked a little bit about a few more topics. Hang in there with us, Stephen. We want to make sure we get it all. Make sure your return is definitely a very heralded one. And that's the 2001 Miami Hurricanes or something else. 17 first-rounders on that roster. Indiana's only had 12 first-round picks all time. You talk comparing and contrasting two programs, Steve. This is it.
Yeah. I mean, all those first rounders. I mean, that's some crazy stuff, isn't it? And that was a powerhouse football team, and it just speaks volumes. But hey, look, Indiana, maybe they've turned a corner, and this national championship definitely will help with their recruiting, and who knows what the future will bring.
Marvin?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Miami, one of those programs who had NIL before NIL, so they were absolutely getting the cream of the crop, and not just them. I ain't gonna put them, not just them, but they have a rich tradition of just phenomenal talent. Again, the state of Florida, specifically Broward County, Dade County, you talking about some raw, real football players and athletes in abundance, and a lot of these kids grew up, wanting to play for the U, watching the U, everything that happened for University of Miami back in the late 70s through the 80s impacts the recruiting today, because that's the time that you refer back to when the U was the U, and that's what they want to get back to. So yeah, man, Indiana basketball school, Bobby Knight, Isaiah Thomas, that's their history. Obviously, Kurt Signetti is looking to change that, rewrite that, and they are, because what they did this year was historic. They didn't just beat teams, they blew out teams, they bullied teams, they separated from teams that have $40 million payrolls. So leadership matters. Leadership matters. Kurt did it with 2- and 3-star players. Okay, 2- and 3-star players who came from James Madison, who coming out of high school, were the best offer they could get was James Madison. Now they out there just dominating some of these historic blue blood teams. And again, leadership matters. So yeah, the Canes were absolutely, 2001, 17 first-round picks. I mean, that's just amazing, man. And to a football nerd like myself, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that stat is just off the charts. Go ahead, Candy. We don't need any more. Just give me your thoughts on this one.
Well, Indiana, their first season was in 1887 for football. They've played 139 years, and yet this is the first time they played for they were a national finalist. They've appeared. They have three. They have three Big Ten conference championships: 45, 67, and now 2025. NIL, what we've said all along, NIL matters and coaching matters. Indiana hiring Kurt Signetti was the smartest thing they did, and it's proven itself on the football field now. Yes, Indiana used to be a basketball school. It is no longer. It is a football school. Miami has always been known as a football school, and they've had such success. It'll be interesting to see where both of these programs are a year from now.
Sure. Well, we'll have a lot of other interesting information in a few moments about where Miami could be headed. But let's talk about our feature topic. It's hard to believe it took a little longer to get to it, but that's how stacked the show is, Steve. I put a lot into the Saturday show, as much as I put into the Tuesday, as you can tell, because we're still loaded. Mario Cristobal, this is our feature topic. Mario Cristobal getting fired at FIU. Sometimes if you don't move on, God wants you to move, and he'll kick you so you can move. It was a blessing because I had the opportunity to go learn under Coach Saban, and it all led back here. Okay, Steve, what are your thoughts about Mario Cristobal and incorporating FIU and Nick Saban into the equation?
Yeah, I think that, everything kind of happens for a reason, and when one door closes, another one opens, right? And like he said, he had an opportunity to go work with Nick Saban, who is one of my favorite coaches to watch when he was on the sidelines. And look, everything comes down to the individual himself, and he was able to turn a negative into a positive. His firing allowed him to get to where he's at now, and I think all the more power to him. All the more power to him.
Marvin?
Yeah, I think, obviously his time with Saban was amazing. I mean, Saban is arguably not just in college football, but you're talking about one of the greatest leaders of men of all time. I mean, he's an all-time coach regardless of level. He's respected everywhere just because of his dominance in what is a super competitive sport. So, his time there, had to be valuable just to be in that and learn from Saban. And then obviously, with FIU, he's learning what it is to be a head coach in South Florida, to be a head coach, in the Miami area. I think at the end of the day, you take all of your experiences, the good, the bad, the tough ones, and what it does is it just adds to what is experience. You put it in you mix all the good and the bad up like it's a pot of gumbo, man, and you just eat off of that and you feed off of that. And it all pushes you forward. It really does. So the good experiences matter. The tough experiences matter. How you respond to those experiences, that matters. What you take from those experiences matter. And everything that he's done, everything he's been through has contributed to why he was standing on the sideline one drive away from winning the national championship.
Candy?
On December 19th, 2006, Cristobal was named the second head coach in FIU's history. He was also the first Cuban-American head coach in Division 1A. He inherited a team with a winless record the previous season. He implemented a spread offense. They struggled for most of the season, losing their first 11 games. However, on December 1st, the Golden Panthers finally broke the football bowl subdivision leading 23-game losing skid with a 38-19 victory over North Texas. His second season showed improvement. Third season took a step back. Fourth season did much better. Gave him a 7-6 record, their first ever winning record. The next season, they took a step back, and then on December 5th, 2012, he was fired from the position of head football coach. Smartest thing he did then was after his dismissal, he was coaching under Nick Saban, who is, as we all know, has had a great history. Mario played as a player in Miami, so he has a different heart that he brought to when he came back to Miami to be a head football coach. Love it. So glad that they had the successful season that they did. Just, it's unfortunate for him. They came against an Indiana team that was unstoppable. Okay, Scott.
Well, here's the thing. I go back a little ways with Mario. I covered FAU Owls before I went to Miami. And of course, now I do them both. But I saw the FAU Owls and FIU every year. So I knew what kind of a coach Cristobal was. It was neat to be reunited with him when he became, that's the first year I started covering Miami football again. But I'll tell you, one of the most memorable games I've ever seen was when FAU beat FIU. And Candy will tell you, Katrina McCormick told Candy that the reason that the FAU got into a bowl game because of that impressive 51-50 win. It was produced a guy by the name of T.Y. Hilton, who was on FIU. T.Y. Hilton was electric in college, and we all know what he ended up doing at the pro. So it's been good working with Mario Cristobal. It's kind of neat, it more or less is kind of neat that we ended up putting him on the show as a soundbite as well, considering what he's done. So I have the utmost respect for Mario Cristobal. I do. He doesn't go out of his way to ever embarrass a media member, which obviously there are some coaches, I'm sure you've dealt with them in the past, Steve. Some coaches are jerks and they just act unprofessional just to try to draw attention to himself. But Mario Cristobal is not one of those individuals, and I have respect for him. So, yeah, I'm glad that he took the FIU firing and proceeded to work with Saban and had a pretty good run at Oregon. Great stuff all the way around. So we have a few more topics we want to get to. What a show this has been. Haven't seen Ballesteri back on. Hope you hang with us a little bit more, Steve, because obviously we have a show afterwards, but we have a lot more great stuff here. And we'll transition over to Caleb Williams as the first Chicago Bears quarterback to defeat the Packers multiple times in the season since Jim Harbaugh in 1991. We'll try to go rapid fire on a couple. What are your thoughts about Caleb Williams? And obviously he certainly had the Packers numbers, Steve.
Yeah, what a year Caleb Williams had, right? I mean, and again, it goes back to, I think, coaching matters. I mean, he had a new coach. They gelled extremely well. He can make some incredible plays with the football. And look, this is like this group of young quarterbacks, all in their second year this year. You know, they're all starting to come together. And you know, the NFL will continue. And I think Caleb Williams, you know, is one of those guys who's only going to get better. I mean, he's only in year 2. I think he's just scratching the surface on his potential. And he'll continue to make life difficult for the people in the division there. I mean, he beat the Packers twice. You know, the Lions. I mean, that division is going to be so much fun to watch in the coming years, and all the more power to him. I thought he really turned the corner this year for him and his team. That would they win 5 games last year, and for them to turn it around like they did, you know, they took the Rams to overtime, and you know, I think the Bears are in great shape moving forward with him.
Yeah, Ben Johnson's done a good job. Go ahead, Marvin.
Yeah, you know, when you compare him and you say that it's the first time it's happened since Jim Harbaugh. For those who don't remember, Jim Harbaugh is a Ring of Honor player for the Indianapolis Colts. He's in their Hall of Fame, which is something, you know, that's a serious achievement if you ask me. So yeah, Jim Harbaugh was a certain caliber player, and you haven't seen that kind of success since then with Caleb Williams. So Caleb is he was touted as a generational player coming out of USC. I saw every single game he played at USC. The guy is just phenomenal. I mean, he does things you just can't coach. He's a different level of athlete at the position. He really is. And, you know, you're seeing him really take off with good leadership. For these young players, for these teams and programs that, you know, are on the right track, leadership matters. You know, Ben Johnson stepped in there, and you realize that Ben Johnson was part of the glue that kept the Detroit Lions, on track. We see that now as the Lions fall apart. You see what Ben Johnson's impact is, as Steve said, last year the Bears were in shambles. This year, one of the best teams in the NFL. Caleb Williams, listen, there were moments, this season where I'm asking myself, are we watching the MVP or watching a future MVP? And I think so. I think Caleb has a really high ceiling. I think there's a lot of great ball to come from this kid. I think this year we just saw flashes. We saw flashes of greatness. We saw areas where we probably have to improve. But again, this kid was just amazing. So, yeah, great year by Caleb Williams. I'm looking to see what he does moving forward. The relationship between him and Ben Johnson should be historic and legendary moving forward.
Candy.
So I obviously have a little bit different take than everybody, but I'm going to say this: Ben Johnson is the best thing that happened to Caleb Williams. It's known that Caleb Williams has a learning disability, and I think Ben Johnson knew how to coach him to get the most out of him. Now, when you're talking about, because your opening statement was they beat Green Bay twice this year. Both of those games, if you're not mistaken, were in Soldier Field. One of them he won in overtime. The other against a backup quarterback because Malik Willis was playing in that game. And then the second one was in the playoffs. And yes, they won by 4 points. Both games coming down to very close games. But yes, I think Ben Johnson for Caleb Williams was one of the best things Caleb Williams could have had, and the Bears can have, because they've had they've turned around and had much more success.
Well, the reality is this: the Chicago Bears haven't been relevant in years. They still don't have a 4,000-yard passer, but Williams got pretty close. So we'll see if he can ultimately break that as well. Let's continue on. I have a few more topics I want to get to. Definitely feel we need to try. The Indiana versus Miami is the most expensive national championship game ever, with the average purchase price being $4,350. Hello, Norwegian Cruise Lines. I wouldn't be caught dead paying that kind of money to go. If I'm not a member of the media and covering it, I am not going. That's what I think. So what about you, Steve? You and I are the same way. If we're not covering it, we're not writing the check, right, Steve?
Yeah, exactly. I'm in firm agreement with you there. No debate there, man.
Marvin?
Yeah, that's, listen, it would have to, first of all, for me to spend that kind of money, it would have to be a Trojan thing, and business would have to be booming. You know what I mean? To me, the best product they have is on TV. There's no place better to watch the game at home, where you have replay, you have expert commentary, you can use your own toilet, your refrigerator is all for you, you stock with all your stuff. At home watching the big game is the place for me. I've been to a couple of Pete Carroll's national championship runs and his bowl games. It was a really good time, but it wasn't that kind of money.
Candy?
That is a lot of money. I mean, I think that's even more than last year's Super Bowl was going for at times. What I will say is, if you have never been to a college football game, and I'm not saying national championship, but a regular college game, you need to go, because I think some of the fans get more into the game and into their team than at some of the other venues. But I would not pay that kind of money to watch the national championship game. Plus, you might be way up high. Your sight line you might not be able to see very well. The best seat in the house at that point is in your own living room, or at one of these watch parties. Even the watch parties you could go to a lot cheaper. But it's getting to the point where the average fan can't afford going to these championship games or Super Bowls anymore. It's just really high priced for the average fan in person.
Okay, let's go back to Indiana. Get this with the ages with these teams, okay? Indiana's player ages were 22 to 25, and this is just unbelievable. You have 47 players, and there were 47 of those. The NFL players' ages are 21 to 22, and there's 140 of those. That's an incredible stat, too, isn't it? Think about it. Indiana, 47 players, ages 22, 25. The NFL players are 21, 22 is 140. If that doesn't say a lot, I don't know what does.
Yeah, it does. And look, I wasn't aware of that, so that's a pretty amazing stat right there. But it comes down to the programs and how they're training their kids and how how it all plays into winning winning football. And kudos to them. Again, I can't say enough good stuff about Indiana this year, and I just hope it pushes them into complete relevance, where it's not just a flash in the pan. With this coach, I don't think it would, but you never know. But again, recruiting is so important. But I wasn't aware of that stat, so good one on yours, Scott.
Oh, thanks, Steve. I try to come up with some interesting stuff. That's what it's all about. You and I know what journalism is. How many times we've been fed all these press releases, come up with stats that we need for our stories, and being able to load up with questions. That's part of our job description, isn't it, Steve? Come up with stuff like this to make it interesting to keep people engaged. Don't worry, Marvin. I'm teaching you this stuff. It takes a little while. He's getting a show that he never thought he'd wake up to. He thought he was going to get into a boxing match, not a sports journalism clinic, and that's why Marvin's in absorption mode today. Go ahead, Marvin.
Yeah, listen, I was an NFL rookie at 23, and it seems like the Indiana Hoosiers have a team full of 23-year-olds. And listen, that's to their credit, man. Listen, they stuck together. Kurt, preached culture. He preached team. These guys bought into it. He was really able to get to the hearts of young men. And, when you're dealing with young men, you're trying to get these guys to mature. You're trying to get them to see, get to a certain perspective, because when you get to a certain level of maturity, you can advance and you can move faster and more efficiently. And that's really what you're seeing here. This is, Kurt taking people from boys to men. And, when you get them at age, 22, 23, you have a very mature person at that point for that age group. And that person is going to give you a lot more of themselves. You're going to deal with less shenanigans, less riffraff, and guys who are just really focused on the concept of team. And that's really what you saw. You saw people who bought into the concept of team go out there and beat the 4 and 5 stars. And that's just because of their maturity and the leadership, period.
Candy.
Yeah, when you talk about the average age, the starting lineup for Indiana was 23. The average age for the whole Packers team was 25. The whole team. We're not just talking starters. And you're talking about there are some veterans that are playing in the league. Like, let's face it, Aaron Rodgers was still playing in the league over the age of 40. So to have that many NFL players, the average age for the NFL players is 26.6. That's only a 3-year difference. But obviously you have 40-year-olds, you have 38-year-olds playing in the NFL. So that just speaks to the maturity level, too, of Indiana players as well. And that matters. And you wonder why that matters. If you make a mistake, it's erase that mistake and don't get it out of your mind and move on. And sometimes when you have lesser age, more not immature, but less maturity, it's harder to get some of those things out of your mind and next play up.
Well, here's what happened with Indiana. They won on leadership and they won on experience. And that's exactly how they beat the Miami Hurricanes, because they had a much more mature team. All right, just a few more topics to go. Obviously, there's a lawsuit filed by Trinidad Chambliss, and his lawyers are planning on suing the NCAA and Mississippi State Court to receive an extra year of eligibility to play college football. I'll just make this really quick. Do you think he'll win, Steve?
No, I don't think it's gonna happen. When you have to take it to court to get another year of eligibility, I just don't see it happening. Now, you never know. It'll depend on the judge, and that they choose for the case, but I don't see him. I don't see that happening.
What about you, Marvin?
You never know. I mean, I've seen these things. Right now, transfer portal eligibility is such a mess. I mean, we've been messed up ever since the combination of COVID and these kids getting an extra COVID year, and then with the transfer portal and the lack of oversight with that, the lack of guardrails with that. It's just the wild, wild west. And I feel like there's a lot of inconsistency with some of these rulings and judgments. It wouldn't shock me if they gave them eligibility. It wouldn't shock me if they didn't. I think right now the NC2A has been getting their butt kicked in court, and I feel like they're just basically, yielding and just bending over just because they don't want to face any more lawsuits. So I don't know which way this is going, but I know we have to get back to guys, being 4-year, 5-year players at the most.
Candy?
I don't think he'll win. I mean, he's already played how many years? It's a request for his 6th year. I don't think he'll win, but again, you never know.
All I'll say about it, Trinidad, you need to go pro. You need to face the best competition out there. Okay, well, Miami was 7-1 at home at Hard Rock Stadium, but their lone loss occurred to the Louisville Cardinals. By the way, I was at that one, and the only press conference where I had a winning coach because Miami was beating the daylights out of them. And Steve, it's like to constantly go into a losing locker room where the coaches aren't in a good mood. I did that many times, but not with Jeff Brome, by the way. When I was trying to get a fourth question in, Jeff Brome was – no, PR said only allowed me 3. Jeff Brome waved him off. No, he could have a 4th, and then Brome was classy. Now, obviously, Miami 7-2 at home. Some thoughts about the fact that Miami wasn't totally invincible at home, and Indiana made sure of that, dropping the Canes to 7-2. But I was so happy with Jeff Brome. He definitely is one guy I look forward to working with down the road. And you talk about a class act. If you've ever talked about a college coach with a class act, he's definitely one of them. And Frank Reich, a while back, it was good that we caught up, and he was with Stanford. But we'll keep the emphasis on Louisville. Miami's now 7-2, and they weren't able to win it during the college football era. Some thoughts about that, Steve? Miami's 7-2.
Yeah, look, it's tough. Coaches at any level when they lose to get some good sound bites out of them, and they tend to get really testy because it's not like excuse me, it's not like baseball or basketball where you're playing so many games, hockey where you're playing so many games during a season. They put a lot of work into these football games for a whole week, and when they lose that one game, they're not in a good frame of mind, as we've seen in the past. But kudos to them. Like, their home field advantage is back, and the fact that they lost in the national championship game, I don't think takes away from that whatsoever. It just happens. But look, home field advantage is a big thing, and especially in college, where the crowds can be incredibly large and raucous, and good for the Canes, right? They lost the one game during the regular season, but that occasionally will happen.
And to lose to Indiana in the national championship game against a team that was blowing out Power 4 teams was just surreal. But kudos to Indiana, hold this one totally against Miami. But as Candy alluded to, Miami made critical mistakes at the wrong time. And during a future show, Steve, what we're going to do is talk about Carson back and where he'll be in the draft. So having you back in the system will be great because it'll open me up to prepare more for our draft coverage down the road. Okay, Marvin.
Yeah, Louisville UM. Pac-12 quarterback strikes again. In 2024, Miller Moss went into the season as a USC Trojan starting quarterback. Good player, solid player. Ended up losing his position to Jaden Maava. But with the Louisville Cardinals, he did okay. I think he had a decent year for the most part. I think it was tough to go into Louisville and lose that game. It's a game that UM should have won. They had more talent. I want to say they were favored, and I think that was one of the games that obviously people had to question when trying to determine if should have been in the playoffs or not. Just how did they play against lesser competition? But no, I watched that game. It was I think it went back and forth. fought, but yeah, at Louisville they had a few players there. They have NIL as well. I don't know if they're matching the Canes, but they had enough players to beat the Canes on that day at home. And yeah, when you're playing with kids, and Steve just alluded to it, playing at home, you have tremendous confidence, and there's definitely a benefit. When you have to travel, man, with a bunch of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, you want to make this trip, you want them to, keep it professional. And listen, I remember those days. Okay, young people do young things, and you get up the next day, you're not ready for that time change, you're not ready for that game the way you need to be. So, yeah, it happened, man. Tough loss. Fortunately, UM was able to overcome it. Look at their whole season and get to the playoffs and make that championship run.
Candy?
This again was a game where Miami lost this game. Louisville threw everything at them. They did a fake field goal. They had 3 different players taking snaps from the center, a reverse that wasn't a reverse. Louisville jumped on them quickly. And if you remember, Miami was playing from behind all game. And then what happens is when you do that, they went out of their normal sequence of throwing in runs and stuff like that. And Carson Beck had to throw to try and keep up with Louisville. And he threw 4 interceptions in this game. And anytime you have that amount of turnovers, I don't care if you're on the road or at home against Louisville, you're not going to win. To even keep the game as close as they did at the end there, they almost could have came back. Unfortunately, Beck threw an interception where they could have kicked a field goal and they would have tied the game and it would have sent it into overtime. But again, Beck had been throwing all game long. That was his 4th interception in that game. I really believe that was the difference. They held Mark Fletcher to 18 yards, and Miami only had 63 total yards rushing against Louisville. That's not who Miami is.
Well, I'll never forget. One of the things I did, Steve, during those opposing interviews, I would ask the opposing coach what they thought of Beck because he's a very heralded quarterback. And I asked the same thing from who handled it with tremendous class as well. So, yeah, our team, we really worked hard to key in on this guy. They watched a lot of game film, so they weren't fazed by him because they were definitely prepared and planned for sure. Final topic of the day. This was a really good one. We've talked about Mario Cristobal and the way he's done things. Well, guess what? He pulled another rabbit out of his pocket. His Missouri defensive end transfer, Damon Wilson, is headed to Miami. He's regarded as a top 10 player transfer portal after posting 9 sacks last seasons. Miami adds a major edge rusher as it looks to replace the production of Ruben Bain and Akeem Messador. All right, Steve, there you go. We're going to see, obviously, Ruben Bain. I'll tell you, these guys are a beast. Let's talk about Damon Wilson, and then we'll talk about these other guys. It's a two-prong thing.
Yeah, that's a huge pickup for them. I saw that the other day, and I automatically my ears have been perking up when it comes to edge rushers because I know that the team that I cover, New England, they'll be looking for an edge rusher in the early rounds of the upcoming draft. So whenever people start talking about an edge rusher, it gets the antenna going up. I think this was a great pickup for Miami. And, it helps when you get to the national championship game when it comes to that transfer portal, right?
Well, it sure is. Well, let me mention something else to you. You guys benefited with your kicking game with Andres Borregales being taken out of Miami. And Andres is a good kid, too. And obviously, they've stabilized their kicking game. But, yeah, Miami does get another edge rusher out of Missouri. And Ruben Bain and Akeem Messador, these 2 guys are going to definitely be good prospects for sure. So you may not – I'm sure you got to be delighted with Andres Borregales up in New England.
Yes, he's another kid that they hit on. I mean, they used a draft pick, with him, and it turned out to be a great move. And it's difficult when you're used to kicking it in the warm weather, and then you go to New England and the weather turns. But he's handled the elements up to this point extremely well, and he's been really, really good for them this year. He's been very reliable, and he had a couple of yips early in the season. That'll happen with rookie kickers, but he's done really, really well. He's really well thought of in the community up here, or up there, I should say, and and within the locker room with the coaching staff.
Of all the players I dealt with down here, Andres Borregales is one of the nicest kids I've ever worked with. I really am, and it was a pleasure working with, and I'm glad that obviously New England benefit. He's cool, calm, and collected. Marvin.
Yeah, I think the name. Yeah, I think the name that we're not mentioning when we talk about the transfer from Missouri and Bain is Jason Taylor. Jason Taylor, Miami Dolphin Hall of Fame defensive end who terrorized quarterbacks for 15 years. This guy is the coach. He's coaching that D-line, and he's coaching him at a high level. You're talking about someone who's able to connect with these players, someone who's able to elevate these players, someone who's able to teach these guys the skill set, the mindset, everything it takes to be an elite pass rusher. You're seeing all that translate in a way that you typically don't see at this level. I mean, I thought he was the name that people weren't talking about enough in regards to, the biggest difference in this team and what's dominant about this team. Even in that Miami loss, man, they were getting after Mendoza's butt. I mean, Mendoza didn't have any time back there. That D-line was collapsing that pocket. And this is a Jason Taylor-led situation. So it's really it's awesome when you can see an NFL Hall of Famer take his knowledge, take his skill set, take his experience, and be able to infuse that into these young kids. And then you see the results show up. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me that a kid out of Missouri who's watching Ruben Bain and watching the other kid, all season long get off and then in the national title game attack this kid Mendoza. You want to be a part of that. You want to be a part of that. You want that same coaching, that same opportunity. So this is this kid from Missouri saying he wants to take his game to another level, take it to the next level. And based on what I saw with Jason Taylor, he's bringing these kids to the next level. So it's a win-win.
I'm glad you brought up Jason Taylor. Great stuff, Marvin. All right, Candy, your final thoughts on this, and then obviously we have station breaks, and we also have baseball coming up, but not before everybody gets a chance, especially Steve, to get his info out there. Go ahead, Candy.
So one of the biggest recruiting tools, Miami now has two big recruiting tools. One, Mario Cristobal, who is an awesome recruiter, but two, getting to the national championship game also puts you on a national spotlight and says, you know what, we're here, we're committed to our players, we want to win, we want a winning program. And what better way to feed you into the NFL than by how many of their players that want to go into the NFL? Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor had such a great year. The list can go on. Like I said way earlier in the show, there are some schools that are really good at developing certain type of players. And to Marvin's point, Jason Taylor knows how to do that. I can't tell you how many times I was on the field taking photos and doing it before the pregame and watching him work out his players and help them build, and just the relationship he has with them. And then watching him on the sidelines. It was great to see. If you want to look back on the South Florida Tribune's YouTube channel, go back to in the beginning, right before the start of the season, Scott actually got a couple minutes in with Jason Taylor, and it's on our YouTube under the video section, and you can go listen to what Scott talked to Jason Taylor about before the season even started. But yes, it's great to get good recruits. It's great to see the recruits that they had great success. That helps to lead to more recruits wanting to come down to Miami as well.
Great stuff. Great show. No Mel, no problem. We have Steve Ballesteri filling in nicely. No preparation. Steve doesn't prepare. He just simply knows his stuff. So with that said, you don't have to prep for this one because he's all too good at this. Steve, you know what? It's so pleasure to have you back on Inside the Pigskin. And now the inventory is so big, we can do it twice a week on Tuesday nights and Saturdays. I'm glad the Saturday show worked out well for you. So the one thing you can do, and Steve, so you know, we've talked about it. When I write my second book, he's going to go out there and write the foreword for this one. This is a no-brainer. Steve and I go back away. When you have 2 KG vets for us, if this is a no-brainer, then I don't know what the word no-brainer is. But the no-brainer is let everybody know how they get a hold of you, Steve.
Well, you can find me on all social media stuff at Steve Ballesteri. On Twitter, at SteveB7SFG. And look, I write for the National Security Journal. I write about defense topics and that. But my first love is the NFL, and I write for PassFans.com. I do a podcast there. We're just finishing up our 15th season, called Patriots No Huddle, and I appreciate you having me back on. It's been a minute, but you know, it was a lot of fun. It was great to meet Marvin, and you know, hopefully we can do this again in the not too distant future.
Oh, I got news for you. I hope Mel's watching. It'll be in the not no distant future. And Marvin likes to stick it in his ear anyway. So Marvin, no, Steve, you know what? I missed you so much on these shows anyway, regardless of whether Mel's here or not. And Mel's been loyal to the brand anyways. But Marvin likes to give him a hard time. When you come up with these two, you're going to find yourself laughing your tail off. But in this particular situation, obviously you have a chance to stand out on your own as you do, because that's the way you are anyway. So I'm looking forward to doing this. We're going to be at the Senior Bowl next week, so I doubt there'll be a show next Saturday, as we're going to be obviously covering the game and all the events that lead up to it. I don't know if you've ever been to a Senior Bowl, Steve, but this is going to be an interesting experience for us. So, all right, Marvin, get your information out there. Baseball's coming up shortly.
Yeah, you can catch me, Marvin Powell III. Marvin on the mic is my handle for all the social medias. I'm here with the South Florida Tribune, 5 shows a week, and you can catch me on Locked On USC twice a week.
Candy, take us the rest of the way.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 45 years in the media business and how it has evolved and changed. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. The audiobook is actually out as well. So if you're an audiobook listener, you can go find his book on the audio version as well. There's a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's also a plethora of great other content. So go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, if you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. What are you waiting for? Honestly, I don't understand. Just click it, like us, share us with all your friends and family, and then turn on your notifications so you're notified every time we go live. And one last quick plug. On Tuesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on the Chicks podcast, our Chicks and Salsa. It's me and 4 other ladies, and we talk mainly sports, but we talk a lot of different things. So check us out as well. Back to you, Scott.
All right, well, that does it for this edition of Inside the Pigskin Saturday morning. So, Steve, I can't thank you enough for coming in, pitch hitting on short notice, but yeah, don't worry, we'll do this a lot, and it was so much fun having you on. It really was. You know, for instance, you and I have been doing it a long time. We built this show to begin with, and to have you back on today, especially the weekend after the national championships, even been a bigger treat. And in fact, that you and Marvin are on the same show, I'm sure you'll think, hey, not too bad sharing the same airspace with this guy, one of my top young prospects for sure. And you know, Candy and I love having you on as well. So meanwhile, thanks again, Steve, for doing this. And I'll definitely be in touch soon. Candy and I will be at the Senior Bowl. Our plan is to try to do a show Tuesday night live from Mobile. We're not sure where we're staying, but that's what you have the weekend to try to figure out. So meanwhile, on behalf of Steve Ballesteri, Marvin Powell III, Candy Ebley, my name is Scott Morgan off the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Talking baseball is next. Take care, everybody. Have yourself a great weekend. God bless. Hope you enjoyed our show. And you can always watch as often as you want because I made sure this show was stacked with a lot of information. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye now.